Okay, well, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your time. We know everybody's busy, but I think this is a very timely topic for all the professionals wanted to move ahead professionally. Before we get started, just a quick word on the using of the Zoom. You have two ways to ask questions. You can use chat box, and we'll monitor that, and we will address that question. You can also unmute yourself. As it get noisy, we'll probably mute everybody, but you do have the ability to unmute yourself. And if you do unmute yourself, then you can ask a question and quickly remute yourself, should you wish to do that. So I just want to make sure people knows that they have that capability. Moving on. Today's topic is the 5 steps to advance your project management career and really achieving your New Year resolution. We'll start with something fun, talk a little bit about the history of New Year resolution and why you really want to have that New Year celebration and to have that resolution. We'll give you 5 simple steps, a couple of sample resolution, and talk about the project management career ladder that we have been advancing, at least from PMO Advisory's perspective, both in my teaching, as many of you know, I'm a university professor, as well as to my training participants. I'm actually conducting this right now from Los Angeles, where we are doing the training as we speak. So pretty exciting time and very busy to the start of New Year. So let's start with the New Year. Why do we have New Year's celebration? The history of New Year celebration is actually pretty deep. We found the first evidence of the New Year celebration going all the way to the Babylonians. And in their calendar, they found that the New Year to be auspicious start of a new beginning. And so it started around 4,000 years ago. They have what they call the Akudu festival. And people really started asking God for favors, various kind, good harvest, great fortune, debt settlement, good health. And I don't think the New Year favors that they ask of gods are frankly very different than the resolution we have today. The Romans continued that tradition and expanded on into even something grander scale. So if you think about the old Roman calendar, it was formed using 10 months. And Julius Caesar in 46 BC actually introduced the 12-month calendar that we today have. Going fast forward a couple years to the 1800s, the Boston newspaper published the first premier article about setting goals and New Year resolution. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna mute everybody. Okay. And that started the, what I would like to say, the American trend of self-improvement in having a New Year resolution. As I'm pretty sure most people here know, we Americans are always, both if you look at it from a positive perspective, we celebrate self-improvement, starting with Ben Franklin diary. So New Year resolution is just weaved naturally into this movement of how we want to improve ourselves throughout, of course, our life. So we Americans actually is probably the biggest consumer of self-help book, by the way, in the world. That's a sort of a little trivia pursuit. Why do we need New Year resolution? Well, there are many different reasons. One way I always look at it, and I think it's helpful for people to look at it, especially for project professionals, is do you want to have sort of the 5 years of essentially doing the same thing? So 1 year of experience doing it 5 times. Or do you want to have 5 years experience progressively more with more engaging experiences? And I'm pretty sure for most project professionals on the call, we like project because it is not that repetitive. All projects are fairly unique and we get to do different things. I think combine that thought with doing new things with the New Year resolution and also what PMI, in that sense, the Project Management Institute career certification I provide is giving us the ability to move upward and move further ahead then I think without the support of organization like Project Management Institute. So some of the questions that we can ask ourselves: am I on the right track? Is the job right for me? What is my next challenge? So you don't want to repeat, of course, your year one, year two, 5 times. What is my next step in career? What am I really good at? Do I need a mentor? What have I achieved so far? Do I have clear goals for my career? How's my work-life balance? Money, passion, convenience, which matters the most? And I think most of us constantly ask these questions so we can reshape our career. We can slowly evolve our career if it's already moving in the right direction. But if it is not, or if we want to have more revolutionary type changes, New Year is also a great way to make a plan to make those changes happen. Okay. And what is holding me back in my career? So I think those questions are really common for smart individuals, working hard professionals. So here we wanted to talk about the 5 steps for advancing your career in project management. And of course, our particular focus is on project management. Step number 1, pick 1, maybe 2 things you wish to work on in 2020. And make sure the goal is stretched but not impossible. And so there are 2 actually important points here that I think is very important. First of all, what I generally advocate is always do fewer things and do them well. And this is true when I give advice to CEOs of organization. For example, we had a client, not a particularly huge company, about 6,000 people worldwide. I think 6,500, of which 6,000 is in the United States. And the CFO some years ago asked around how much are we spending on projects, as you would imagine any C-level should do. And he couldn't get an answer back. So he started a huge initiative. Well, it's meant to be a small initiative, it turned out to be quite huge, to essentially count how many active projects they have in that medium-sized manufacturing company. It's a very famous American company, so I'm going to protect the name and protect the innocent. And lo and behold, to their utter surprise, they counted 3,000 active projects in their organization. Now, if you think about it, the organization isn't that big, 6,500 people. And if you have 3,000 active projects, that's literally 2 people per project. Obviously, that is just an absurd level number of active projects. And to make matter worse, they actually use a fairly strict definition project. So they didn't just count, whatever work it is and however people like to define project. They actually put some parameters, like the project has to be more than 2 people, has to be more than, I think, a month of effort, or was it 45 days of effort? So while they're still small projects, they do have actually parameters. And one of the big part of the work that we help them do is come up with sort of the process and the schema to look at those 3,000 projects and help them whittle down to something more meaningful. So that's one story. Clearly, 3,000 projects is way too many for a company of 6,500 people. The other thing I'd like to bring up is earlier in my career, I was vice president of a financial service company. And it's not a particularly large company. It's about 600 people company. We are very well known in the legal industry for providing student loan, but we provide student loan of all kinds to graduate, undergraduate students. As a 400, 500 people company, I think it was about 500 at the time I was there. It's not particularly large, and so we only have limited capacity to do projects. The CEO of the company hired me to run the project management services. And what we eventually helped the company do is shape what we call the Big X project. The X is always a single digit, so it could be Big 5 project, Big 7 project. And by the way, 7 was the maximum we ever tackled. The idea here is, yes, we have many ideas in the company. Even though that company is only 500 people, we still probably easily have 100 good ideas. But at the enterprise level, we don't want to be distracted with doing so much things. And so that idea of the Big X, and X being somewhere between 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we never exceeded 7. We never actually went below 4. So it's always between 4 to 7 projects. These are projects that we really want to do well. We will dedicate our organization resource to. And for each of those projects, we have sort of what we call the minimal success criteria. But we also have the stretch stretch success goals. And the stretch success goal, by the way, in that company was actually tied to company bonus. So if you didn't make any stretch goal, you get your normal bonus. But if you get 10%, 20%, up to 100%, your bonus essentially doubles. Having said that, we never actually achieve 100% of our success goal. I think the best we ever done was about 78, 79% of the stretch goals. But that idea of focus, and even at the individual level, for most of you, I'm sure you have many, many choices, different things to pursue, different hobbies to pursue, different interests, different professional certifications to pursue. So you want to be focused and get the few meaningful ones done. And you may want to set yourself with some stretch goal. Now, the idea of stretch goal, of course, is to extend yourself. But don't extend yourself to the point of breaking, because that is rather discouraging. For example, I'm almost 50. I never climb mountains. If I have a stretch goal of climbing a small hill or mountain here and there, I probably could do it. But climbing, let's say, Mount Everest is probably out of my league, and I would be greatly disappointed. So this is what we mean by stretch, but not to the point of being impossible. Step number 2, this is when you should really start planning. Planning is a primary function in almost all organizations and all people. And if you don't plan, don't know where you're going, of course, you wouldn't know when you get there. I have actually been a big proponent later, you'll see, on the execution side. In the industry, a lot of you know me that I spearhead the framework called strategic business execution. Project management itself is a very execution-oriented discipline. But I put a lot of emphasis on having the right plan. Even though today the world is moving more to agile, to lean management, it is still important to have a sense of direction, maybe because the volatility and the changing nature of today's economy, even our profession and company, we cannot set rigid goals as we have before. We have to be flexible, but to have a sense of direction, if you want to march north, where is that north? And that is still important to have. So create a reasonable plan. Depends on a little bit your personality, the pursuit that you have. Should it be a more flexible plan, just a sense of direction so the detail emerges? Or should it be a more rigorous plan because it is something fairly specific? And think through, what are the few things you need to do in order to achieve those goals? What are the resources? What are the people? What is the schedule? What is the money? And that help you to really pave the way to achieve that. Step 3. This is where my bias has always been: engage, act, execute, implement. Engage to start working toward the goal right away or within a few days. Do not delay, because there is no good day to start anything that's really a change. Procrastination is perhaps the single biggest enemy of achieving your goals. So in all those cases, start moving in that direction that you want to go. Chinese has a saying, I think it was Sun Ji or Lao Ji once said, the 1,000-mile journey, or they call it 1,000-league journey, starts with the first step. And even if you take that step in the wrong direction, if you're smart about it, you probably very quickly figure out you're in the wrong direction, and then you can switch course and head to that right direction. If you don't start, you will never know. So this is where engagement or acting or implementation becomes really important. And as you go on that journey, make sure you are flexible about it. Like I said, most journeys don't truly have a very rigorous path. It is not rigid. So you may have to adapt to the changes or to the obstacles as you see along that journey. Few goals can be achieved without some level of change. Thus, it's important to monitor that progress and adapt to that change. The other thing I will put focus on is that always put your sensor out to the environmental situation. Economy, for what it is today in the United States, we have very robust economy, and that's great, of course. But that may not always be the case. So people should try to figure out that if the economy turns south, or if it even gets better, what are the opportunities? What are the threats? What are the changes I need to make? By constantly sensing the environment and then not lose focus on your journey, you're far more likely to get there. And then the final piece that I always tell people is be kind to yourself. Celebrate. I think most of us are rather harsh, especially toward ourselves. We have a high standard. We'd like to meet that standard. We're disappointed if we fall short of that standard. And to some extent, of course, having ambition and having that rigorous of assessment is helpful. On the other hand, we do need to be kind to ourselves. And I think at the new year, it is worthwhile to think about how we can celebrate, how we can reward ourselves. Not only if the goals, when the goals reach, but also along the way as we make progress. I used to joke that we become project managers often because we love celebration. And how I define milestone in some of my project is an excuse for celebration, right? Project management is, I'm sure everybody knows the definition of milestone. These are some logical points in time in which a major chunk of work is either started or ready to start. But the definition I often use, at least in my work, is where can we go out to go for a drink? When can we go out to celebrate? Bring the team together for lunch and learn? Because those are great moments to even celebrate the small successes. And before you know it, it becomes very large success. And that idea is true even for you as an individual. So be kind to yourself and pat yourself on the back. And sometimes hard work is more important than actually achieving results, because hard work is repeatable. It is consistent. It is a part of your character. Success sometimes could be just sheer luck. A couple of the quotes that I pulled from, let's say, famous people. Start with Richard Branson. I admire this person greatly for a bunch of reasons, but for his really the willingness to take adventurous routes and make things happen. So his quote, get unbelievably fit, so I'm ready for a trip into space. As I'm sure you know, that's one of the Virgin Enterprise goal. I'll be doing a lot of trekking and biking to get me into that top shape. And when I finish the Virgin Strive Challenge, that's back in 2016, I feel like I'm 25-year-old again. I haven't felt that good for 40 years. And I'll also be doing some centrifuge G-force training, so I'm as acclimatized as I can be for that journey. So this is something he mentioned in 2018. Another person that I admire a lot, Melinda Gates. She dedicated her life to helping others, and and also Bill Gates in general. So both of those people are my heroes. Melinda focused on picking one word for each year. I found this to be more successful than setting a more traditional resolution, because instead of promoting a radical change in behavior, it encourages a gradual change in mindset. Last January, I chose the word gentle, and I spent 2016 trying to put it into practice. Be gentler to those around you, gentler in my approach to the world, and most importantly, gentler to myself. So in her case, she finds a theme for that year and try to work on that theme. And I'll share a little secret. My theme for 2020 actually is something I already mentioned. Be kind to myself and to the people around me. As a project manager, as a project professional, running a training advisory company, I often get into call into helping companies audit, for example, how well their project is doing. As I'm sure you know, it's quite easy to play Monday morning quarterback, especially in the audit situation. So when I used to be younger, I would say, and probably a little bit more strong-headed, I tend to be fairly critical when I see really just poor project management. And I would think, well, they should know better. They are project management. Most of the people I audit or help are PMPs. And I will provide a list of prescriptions, things to do better. And while I probably was never truly too harsh, since they are paying clients, I can be very direct. As I gain older, as I'm older now, and hopefully gain some greater wisdom, the realization I have in the last couple of years is that most people, of course, try to do the best they can, right? You could ask yourself, how many of us go to work and try to sabotage our workplace, our organization, our project? We don't. Most of us may sometimes get occasionally lazy, but for the most part, we try to do the best we can. And very often, we are not given the right level of resources, including time or money or people, to do those work just that well. So what happens is that project management becomes an optimization exercise. And sometimes it's not even a good optimization exercise because we are not even given enough resources. So the example I use is if people want a pitcher of orange juice freshly squeezed, then you obviously need to have quite a bit of oranges. If you're only given 2 oranges by your organization and ask go squeeze that and give you a pitcher of orange juice, there's probably not much you can do. So what I learned is to take environmental considerations far more into my assessment when I help organization audit project. I take a lot deeper view and look at where they are, what are the competitive forces, what industry are they in, what are the internal challenges, strengths and weaknesses, capabilities, before even passing judgment or passing recommendation on the state of the project. As I'm sure all of us project professionals know, one of our challenges, we are not given often the right resource and tools and schedule to do our work properly. So instead of being very, very critical, and yes, there's always room for improvement, my most recent audits and findings tend to pass on the message to the organization is that very often the project needs more help. So be gentler to the project professionals involved, and even to the organization, because organization doesn't have infinite resource too. There are reasons why, for example, the client may only give you 2 oranges because that's all they have, even though their appetite or their goal is for that pitcher of orange juice. So there could be a lot more better expectation setting than just being sheer critical of the situation. So my goal for 2020 at that professional level is be kinder, be gentler, not like Melinda Gates, but also be kinder to myself. In 2019, frankly, I had a number of notable failures, at least what I consider failures. But as I'm looking at the situation, I realize I am just like you, doing the best we can. So that's one way to set New Year resolution. Fast forward a little bit, let's look at the project management career. All of you on the call are project professionals. And again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You may have seen this in some of my other webinars or writing, but to me, this is a fairly good career ladder. As people go from sort of the junior level when they first started at the entry level and becoming analysts, started managing small projects, many of us, and probably most of us on the call, are accidental project managers, meaning that we didn't get into the workforce or select a profession called project management. Instead, we embark on this somewhat by accident. That's typically happens when we did something well, our boss needed help, and next thing you know, we started managing small projects, and from there, we went to larger projects. So from junior project manager, we become senior manager. And by the way, my career path is remarkably close to this ladder. I started out as a technical writer, so not quite a project analyst or project assistant, but I was a fairly independent, working on a small team with my project manager. So in some ways, I was helping out with the project management tasks. And I became a project manager fairly early on by accident, actually. I always joke, I accidentally fired my project manager. So what happened is there was a project meeting, the project manager, my boss, was sick, so I went to his place. And the client was just not happy with the project, so I got yelled at, or at least felt like I got yelled at for the hour. When I went back to my department, my project manager's boss, the director of the department, saw me and nicely asked me how was that meeting. And since I got beat up pretty bad, and I was too young to understand the politics of organization. I just let them have it, saying how bad the client thought about project. And my director really got nervous and got upset at that, fired the project manager, asked me to lead the team since I've been doing most of the work. And that's how I actually became project manager, completely by accident, jokingly firing my own boss. But I was actually pretty good at organizing. So from managing small projects, and those were training projects, technical training projects, I started managing larger projects. And even at the days of Nabisco, I became an expat, getting the bakery up and running, was the training up and running in China, Indonesia, Taiwan. And next, from those reasons, I started managing a lot larger projects. Later in my career, I went to Accenture after the days at Nabisco and worked in their change management practice. And there I led training for large projects like SAP implementation. And I remember Corning was like a 7-8 year implementation. I wasn't there quite long, but set up training for those. And from there, we started managing larger programs. Some of the larger programs I managed was Standard & Poor. That unfortunately launched date was on actually 9/11/2001. And from there, eventually I went to KPMG, led global project services, became a portfolio manager, managing a portfolio over typically somewhere between 120 to 150 projects a year. Right. So this is a fairly natural career ladder for me, and I suspect many of you have similar stories. Now, what's good about the PMI, and I'm a big advocate of PMI. For those of you who know me, I volunteer heavily on different tracks of PMI. I'm on the standard committee for risk, for portfolio, for example, and I'm on task team right now, even for other things. PMI has a certification, and those certifications map very nicely into an overall career. So at the entry level, you have CAPM. At the skill level, you have the PMP. Those are professional organization, agile, PBAs, risk management, schedule professional. And then there's the experts, what I consider really to be at the top of that career ladder. So you have the PGMP, program management, which is the top of the career ladder really for, I would say, the technical track, because the largest set of endeavors that we manage are really programs. Portfolios are no longer single endeavor or even highly related endeavor. They are more of, at the business level, helping organization make investment decisions. Now, PMI used to have something called Organization Project Management Maturity, OPM3. I think that's largely dormant, if not completely dead. But I know, knowing PMI, they'll probably come up with something else. They are actually doing quite a bit, something called Brightline. You may see economists. They're working with Boston Consulting Group. So I suspect they're brewing something. I just don't know what that is. And they probably want to reach further and deeper and impact the organization. So at the expert level, there may be new things emerging. But I think for most of us, this serves as a great timeline. Entry level, 0 to 4 years, skill anywhere from 4 could really go upward, and then expert once you get into the 10 years or the 20 years. And that really gives us the strong backing. So if you could map the career ladder, and you could actually map to this set of certifications, as you can clearly see. So for some of you who's interested thinking about how to move ahead in project management, the way I look at it is we only have nominal control of the environment that we're in, whether it's the organization, because it partly depends on the need of the organization or the industry. And sometimes the economy could turn south, that could even derail our career. The thing we do have control in is how we learn, how we progress, how we obtain certification, for example. So this is something I always advocate. You are the master of your career, right? The organization loyalty as we know it is, I wouldn't say it's dead, but it's definitely not as important as it once was. Even the Japanese no longer truly have lifetime employment. In the United States, most of us probably expect to have a dozen career, a dozen job in our lifetime. So here is your chance to build your career. So that's why I really want to end the presentation. I know it's a little bit shorter than the usual hour, but to give you a sense what the career ladder is like. This is being recorded, of course, and you could come back and take a look at that career ladder. So I wish everyone a happy and successful 2020. And just a little plug for PM Advisory. We do a lot of training in the project management space. Our public classes is more limited to the different type of boot camp for the different certification. And we probably do more certification than most company, if not all company. We are one of the few that works in program space, PGMP, portfolio, PFMP, risk, RNP, agile, ACP, as well as the PMP itself. Most of our PMP courses are only in the Northern Jersey, in New York City area, because there's just too many people offering it. But as you can see, we do take the PGMP and portfolio to around the country. I'm actually calling right now from Los Angeles. We just finished our PGMP bootcamp, for example, right near the Los Angeles airport, international airport. And there are a couple of other locations we are considering as well. So for those of you who may have a preference, please do let us know, and we'd be happy to consider some of the other cities. But this right now shows our public course for 2020. We'll probably update this with additional courses, and it will give you a good plan to see if you are interested in any of our courses. And last thing I would mention is our ACP course and risk course are largely live virtual. Risk is a very interesting area. I think it's very, very important, but for some reason, I would say the market receptivity to the RMP certification is relatively low. So we offer 3 times a year, and right now we actually have a risk course that's happening just yesterday, and it's gonna happen again in about a week's time. So you could see some of our schedule. For those of you who are on the call, I do appreciate it. You can use our discount code if you go register, and it will give you a 20% discount for all our future public courses until the end of May 2020. So feel free to leverage the code. Just showing a couple of recent publication. We actually recently created an ebook. It could be a printed book too, a picture book about project management. So look for that news. We'll make an announcement very soon, and we'll probably even run a webinar about the new book, a picture book about project management. It's actually redundantly created for a conference that we attended last week, and I think a lot of you will probably enjoy that picture book. To claim 1 PDU, to be fair, this call isn't exactly 1 hour, so you may have to adjust a little bit downward, but you have the code here, and you can claim up to 1 PDU, especially if you review, repeat, but make sure by the code of ethics, you'll need to spend that hour. So we'll finish a little bit sooner than an hour. Having said that though, I do like to open the floor for question. Are there any questions that we can address? I see there's a chat message from Rhoda saying the voice is a little different, difficult to hear. I muted the people's phone lines and voice lines, so hopefully it became clear. So want to check again, are there any questions from the participants? Okay, well, if not, and many of you know me, so you feel free to contact me. You could contact us at sir@pmadvisory.com and email us any questions you have. We'd be happy to answer the questions. Thank you so much for joining us in the 35 minutes we have. Happy New Year, and I wish everybody a fabulous 2020. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year. Bye, everybody.